So we just wanted to thank you for coming on the show today and joining us. We're very excited for this conversation and to jump a little bit into your background and your story and your journey to get to what's gotten you here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're really excited to hear about not just like what you do, but kind of like what brought you to that, for sure. I think that's going to be an interesting story. So I guess like first of all, like not everybody necessarily knows what that is. Like, why don't you kind of explain what a sound therapy practitioner is and how that applies to you?
Sure. Yeah, it's not really like a widely used term. So the way that I look at it is I use the experience of sound in order to help people get past, something that they might be dealing with, or I use, a lot of therapies out there are basically remunerating your problems and talking about your problems, which in my opinion is something that gets you stuck in your problems. So you can use sound and the experience of vibration to just get you out of your loops, get you out of your mind and into something more present, something, and being here in real life in your experience. So that's like it in a nutshell. And that sort of takes various forms, right? So it can be someone coming into my home and, maybe they have cancer or some kind of like PTSD. And you can say, all right, well, I want to address that by saying, where are you holding your tension? Oh, I can't sleep at night. I have all these headaches. All right, so we're going to work on bringing some vibration. We're going to work on bringing like some presence and awareness to your, the space around your mind. Or if you like just went through a breakup, all right, we're going to work on placing bowls on your chest and bringing some awareness and energy to your heart space. So it's just a way of redirecting someone's attention and energy to certain spaces on their body, or just their whole experience, and saying like, listen, you're way too much in your mind, or you're way too much involved in your emotions. Let's come back into presence, come back into your awareness, and we're going to use sound as the vehicle to get you there.
So it sounds like you're not just like kind of like healing people with sound, but you're also kind of like helping them discover where they're holding that tension.
Yeah, I'm not actually healing anyone. They're opening up the space to heal themselves because, people talk about energy flowing through your body and chakras, and there's sort of like a general knowledge of this out there right now. I think that's like popular, but if you just think about it as like river flows in your body, and when energy becomes stuck because you are, caved in your heart, or you're caved in your mind, you're stuck in certain ways, your body's not functioning properly. So there's a couple ways around that. You can use plants or medicine to help people loosen up, like cacao or whatever, and that helps them move energy, stuck energy. Or you can almost, it's like you're flicking somebody in the third eye with the sound. It's like, wake up to where you are. And then all of a sudden they, you can watch them almost like release during the sounds, and this helps them heal themselves basically, because sound is, or music in general, I don't know the guy's name, but there's a Sufi mystic, and I always like identify with this quote, but he said that sound and music is one of the few things where you experience like God's beauty as it is. If you're like looking at art, somebody has to like tell you, oh, this is like what I was thinking, and here's like the interpretation. Or you read a poem or something like that, there's like a layer of mind that you have to get through in order to understand the beauty of it. But when you're listening to sound or music, it's just as it is. And that experience of the beauty as it is like what helps people get out of the mental loops, the self, the inability to get out of their own way,
I think that's something a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like from what we found interviewing people on the show is a lot of us find things that help us, and then that becomes our practice and how we help other people. So is that what was the case with you with this?
100%. You got to find what resonates with you. I know you said you went for a run this morning. Mm-hmm. That can be a meditation, right? And I'm sure it is.
It absolutely is for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what people don't understand is anything can be a meditation, right? And anything that brings you into awareness of your experience and saying, wow, this is my life right now, and I'm not where I was, or I'm not thinking about the future. I'm just here. And like running or skydiving or music or formal sitting or whatever can all function to bring you into that space, right? So for me, when I was young, I remember I would sit at the piano and I just go down to like the super low end and hold my foot on the sustain pedal and just go, and just like listen to it. I was like almost obsessed with it. And I never knew what that was or why that was cool to me. But, I just did it. And I didn't do well at piano lessons or, getting into the scales. I was like, it's too much for my brain. But I always had a thing for music. So I started creating music, one-man band type music on the computer, just coordinating all the production myself. And at the same time, listening to Alan Watts and Eckhart Tolle, and just like broadening my perspectives, and it sort of just like came together like, oh, I'm learning about meditation. I also love music. And it sort of just came together like that way.
How old are you at this point? Because like I can't imagine. Like I'm picturing like a 10-year-old just like listening to Alan Watts.
I sort of condensed the timeline there.
Yeah. I'm curious. Take us through the.
Let me extrapolate. So yeah, 5 years old playing at the piano, right? And then I grew up Christian Catholic. So for a long time, I was just like going to church with my parents and asking a lot of questions, like trying to understand the nature of things and like what are the most essential truths of, like life or whatever. And, my parents, they were good. They tried to introduce me to spirituality, but often they didn't really have like too much of a answer for me. It was often, hey, don't look. All you need to know is right here and don't look anywhere else. Well, of course, that's exactly what I ended up doing and started learning about, Buddhism and other traditions of the world. And now I'm skipping to like 18, 19, 20. And I just sort of like ditched the idea of like religious exclusivity. Like, oh, you can only be this, And I just started seeing so much similarity. Like I would see Ram Dass say a passage about the heart and how important it is to be aware of your heart and treat everyone you meet with like an open heart. And then I would see Jesus say the same thing, or I would read something about Buddha saying something similar. Like, wow, like look at all these traditions which are pulling down like divinely inspired knowledge. It's so beautiful, right? So getting into that, and then I think in my early 30s I went to a gong bath, and I was like, what was that? I mean, I love music and I create music on my own all the time, playing guitar, whatever, but I didn't understand what happened in the gong bath. I felt like I needed to sit perfectly upright, and there was nothing to hang on to from it. There was no rhythm, there was no melody. It was just waves of intensity, and I felt like I just went to on a journey, right? So I bought a little bowl, and then it becomes an obsession. You buy another bowl, and another chime, another this, and before you know it, you're not going on vacation, you're buying musical instruments. But yeah, then it just started to like blend I started to, this is before sound baths or sound therapy became, sort of mainstream, but like I was just starting to blend, and a couple of my friends would say, "Hey, can you play your bowls at my yoga class?" And Kaylin.
Yeah.
And I would, obviously oblige with 3 bowls trying to make it work. But yeah, over time, the two things that I loved, which were this like spiritual seeking and also music and the experience of the beauty of music, I just like put them together. And I at that moment, I realized I'm like, I'm going to sell my t-shirt business. I owned a screen printing business, graphic design. I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm going to do my firefighting career, and on my off time, I'm just going to pursue this wherever it takes me, So that's how I basically made it happen.
What was that decision like to go from this is like a hobby, this is something that I like to do, to go into like, I want to do this to, you're obviously making money, but more importantly, like to help people? Was that like an inner struggle for you?
Not at all.
Yeah.
I think that one thing I really love about my firefighting career is you're always helping someone. Every time the thing goes off, it's like you're there to help. And that makes it such a beautiful job in a lot of ways, and it's never the same. No 2 calls are ever the same. And then when I came into this, I was like, if you do anything, if you focus on anything hard enough, you can make a career out of it. There's people out there on, Instagram who, I was just watching this guy, he's like blind and he's a doctor, and he just like tells you about fruit. He's like, oh, this tomato, it's so beautiful. And he's like, and then he tastes the tomato, and he's like, and he's got hundreds of thousands of followers, millions probably. I don't even know. But the point is, like, you can pull from the swamp anything that you want if you're dedicated enough to it. And I kind of realized that. I had a friend, I want to give you a shout out, Alicia Mazzella, who she made a beeswax candle business that I did not think was possible. And she did it so well. She just went one-dimensional. I'm only making beeswax candles. And she was very successful. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. Whatever it takes, I'm just going to play the gong. And if I get paid $100 to, pay, that's fine. I don't need money. I'm already set. So let me just see what happens, And I still play from that space now. It's like, it's not even really like, you can't push a healing modality to be
like a sales business.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like you can't sell somebody on it. Like you don't want to sell somebody on it who doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, that's really, then all of a sudden you're sort of like change the flavor of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just show up like, hey, I'm inspired to do this and I want to like help people, whatever happens, I feel like from there,
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like 2 different worlds to be in, though, like, and 2 similar worlds if you think about it, because they're both helping in the fire and doing being a firefighter and doing the sound baths. But at the same time, it's a little bit too, you kind of think of a traditional fireman guy with a mustache, a little bit more manly, and then you think of something that's a spiritual practice, and that's a little bit foreign to some men. So it's nice to see you being able to embrace both ends of it.
Yeah. I think dabbling in that dichotomy is like something I really enjoy. You wear a uniform and you salute someone, and there's a certain order that goes with the fire department, right? And then I do that for 24 hours. And then for the next 72 hours, I dress however I want. I'm tapping into awareness and my energy and heart, and like approaching everything with like love. And it's like 2 totally different things, which I've learned to like actually blend together. But I love that because there's 2 sides to you, and if you just serve your masculine side without serving your like more feminine energy, you won't be like a real balanced human being. And that goes for men and women, so I really enjoy that.
Yeah. It seems like you've really like embraced the identity of that. And like, to me, what I wanted to ask there was like, how do you like separate those 2 things? But you kind of answered it in that sentence by saying that like, I've kind of learned to blend that. Have you had any specific experiences like with the company or the firefighters that you work with to like blend what you've been doing?
You know, at first you feel different because, you know, I don't have a pickup truck and I don't, you know, watch football on Sunday. So you're like, ah, man, like something's off, right? But then you learn that whatever is meant to come through you in this world is meant to come through you. And what's meant to come through me is that you don't have to be this one way and do what I do. And actually what's needed is for me to be exactly who I am and go to the firehouse so that these men can also learn that it's okay to, you know, be like this, you know, be love, you know, whatever, just a different way. Not necessarily like me, but just like a different way, right? Then, so now sometimes I'll bring my gongs there and I'll set them up in the day room and we'll, you know, mess around and they're always like, what? I had no idea, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's enjoyable. And over time you sort of, you know, you lose the border between what's your life and what's work. It just all becomes, you know, what you're doing with your experience of life. This is what I'm doing today. I'm going to the firehouse or I'm, you know, at my house, whatever. It's just all how you like are living your life. And it's not really like work or life, you know?
Yeah. It's almost like as soon as you stop like trying to like put these identity labels or define yourself in this way, then you can kind of like free flow through that thing, right? It doesn't like, we've kind of learned that too with the podcast, is that like, we don't just have to be in podcast mode when we show up here and then never show up like that. It can be something that blends in your whole life.
Yeah. These boxes we put ourselves in and you know, once you do one day, once you create a box for yourself one day, then you feel obligated to stay in it. But like Ram Dass always says, like you have no obligation to show up tomorrow like you did today, you know, and you can just flow whatever, you know, you're not feeling it today or you are feeling it or you want to do this today. You can just like take your experience wherever you want to. And that's something you like gain confidence in over time as you get older. Like, oh, I can just treat this however I want to treat it, you know, and I can go to the fire department and be easeful and also be like open-hearted and compassionate. And when I meet EMS patients, I'll go to an EMS call, like somebody, all of a sudden, you know, I'll just drop into Reverb Yogi and just, you know, maybe just direct some energy at them or some like, you know, some kind healing like words and just just go to the other, you know, persona, not really persona, but the other energy that I typically embody, you know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's, go ahead.
No, you got.
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry. So, in your time that you've been doing this, how have you seen it transform people? Like, have you seen people that come for the first time and they're a little bit skeptical, and then you find that you see them kind of following you along wherever you're playing?
You definitely see an expansion from people. They come with like a very finite expectation and belief for what a sound journey can be, or sound bath, sound meditation, or playing the gong. They think playing the gong is just, you know, doom, and then, you know, that's it. Or like something like the Gong Show from whatever, the 70s, 80s. But often they'll lay down and you can see this like tension in their eyes. Like, what are you about to do? Like, what's happening? Do you think you're going to heal me with this stuff? And by the time they leave, they've dropped all that and they're like, wow, I just went to the craziest places in my mind and that was so beautiful. And they start to get it, you know what I mean? It opens up a little bit for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know in my experience when I went to the one that you had at Kelta, I kind of just felt like I was like interstellar the whole time. just like traveling in space. Like I wasn't really focused on anything or thinking about anything, but like the way that the sound was just moving through that room kind of just had me feeling like I was in space in my head, just like traveling.
That's from the gong, do you think, or just
I
everything?
mean, I don't know, because like that room in Kelta is like a little bit enclosed, so it was just like it felt. I don't know if it was just the gong or like everything that was going on, but it was just like very interstellar to me is how I felt. Like just, but in like in a relaxing, calming way. You know what I mean?
Not in a world's gonna end kind of way.
Yeah, no, not at all. Like I was just like, my soul's just traveling the universe right now. That's kind of how I felt. And I was just like, I was sitting in my body, but like I wasn't in my body and like my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of people get caught up in the, like, just I mean, like meditation is the word, but it could be anything. Like, people get caught up in the idea that it's like you're supposed to think about nothing, or that like you're just supposed to be able to like turn your brain off or something like that. And like the people who are complete experts at it, who have been doing it for years, who are the monks in the mountains, like obviously they get to a point where they can do that. But I think people get caught up in the fact that you kind of can't get to the point where you disassociate before you realize that like you're thinking about something else. So actually when you're meditating and you're thinking about the fact that I can't get this out of my head, or what, you're actually doing it right.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like meditating is not having no thoughts. It's not identifying with those thoughts as being you. So when the thought comes in of, you know, whatever comes in, let's just say like I'm feeling insecure right now or something like that. Some people will take that and make that who they are, and all of a sudden, boom, they think I am insecure. Or you can say, create a little distance and say, I see the thought that is coming in that says I am so insecure or whatever. I'm just going to watch it and I'll let it pass. And what was important 2 minutes ago in your mind will literally be nothing 2 minutes later. And it's like seeing that overall picture. And you described an interstellar experience. What that is you're stepping into the timeless inner space, right, of awareness. You're stepping out of the story of Stephen, everything that's happened in your whole life, who you think you are, what sounds people use to call, you know, Steve, like that's your name, but that's just like sounds to, you know, place you in time and space. So it doesn't have to necessarily be like a healing is happening. All it has to do, sound has to do is, or the meditation has to do is take you out of that story of who you think you are and let you experience a broader perspective of who you are, your connection to all of a sudden everything. All of a sudden you're traveling through space. You're in an interstellar journey. Wow. You know, I think that's like where the power of sound is.
Yeah. So let's get into that like a little bit deeper. Like, why did you choose sound? But also, like, why do you think that that's such a powerful thing? You know, people can look at powerful images. People can find all sorts of ways to kind of interpret themselves. Why do you think that sound is such a powerful thing?
I think we're all starting to realize that like everything we thought was important on the outside of us is actually not that important. And what's actually important is like your inner space and cultivating the awareness that gets cultivated in a sound bath. Going to those spaces is actually what's really authentically important. So my whole goal is to create spaces where that's easy for people to step into their awareness, to step into like a loving energy. And so I work on that within myself, you know, all the time. It's kind of like how you go through life. Like yoga is 24/7. And what that does is it makes it comfortable for you guys to do the same thing when we're in space together. And, you know, stepping into a sound meditation, I want that room to feel the same way. All right, everybody, we're all comfortable to, you know, drop your guard, drop your story, and then step into that important space that's has nothing to do with social media, has nothing to do with your appearance or how you're seen. It's just all your inner world, and it's your job to create like a beautiful environment in there. When you close your eyes, is it pleasant? And I've really taken that responsibility fully. There's an Indian yogi and mystic named Sadhguru, and he always talks about, you know, it's 100% your responsibility to make your inner world how you want it. No one else has control over it. So I think sound baths are cool, sound meditations, and other modalities too. There's many roads to get the job done, right? It's like what resonates with you. But I think it's really, I feel like I can imagine certain people dropping in very quickly. Oh, I can't meditate. Oh, well, you did. You don't know that that's what you did, but essentially you meditated. And you spent 45 minutes relaxed. And that's why you're having a hard time getting up and walking away and dropping back into the, you know, hustle and bustle of the Dunkin' Donuts world. You know, it's like, you don't want to go back to that because you just experienced something authentic. You were there. So,
yeah, I think a lot of it is just kind of like taking that pressure off yourself that you don't have to always be like rushing to the next thing or accomplishing the next thing. I think we have our culture is so built on like, what did you accomplish today? What did you get done? This and that and that. And that's fine. I'm not saying don't go out and hustle and pursue your business or whatever it might be. But also at the same time, like sometimes you just have to look around and be like, I'm fucking here right now. Like I'm in this space. Like we're doing, you know what I mean? Taking a second to be like, we're on a podcast right now talking about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So much so that people are not even ever enjoying the moment that they're actually in. You know, it's like you hustle and move, and you never actually get to the time where you can just be like, all right, I'm good, because your brain is so wired to continue this progress, and you're never actually enjoying it while you're trying to do the progress. You know, you can move a certain way, and like I'm building a shed on my property, and you can build the shed such that you're enjoying putting up the whole thing and not waiting until it's done to start enjoying it. Because if you do that all the time, then even when it's done, you're going to be like, well, I got to get to the next thing, you know? So it's just become sort of an energy that I feel like, I don't know if it's New Yorkers or Americans or just the world, but we've all just been like, yeah, the now is not enough, and we need to get to the next moment, which we're deeming more important than now.
Mm-hmm. Are there any practices other than sound baths that you use to make sure you stay in the present moment?
Driving is really beautiful for me. I have so many breakthroughs while I'm driving, because I just open myself up to like the visual of that's always changing, you know? You're driving, it's just like constant, you know, constantly changing and stimulus, and, you know, I think that's really beautiful for me. But also I do Sadhguru's yoga practice called Shambhavi Mudra, which is every morning. It's a 21-minute practice, which involves, you know, some asanas and some sound. But that's just like a wellness technology to sort of like prime your body, balance your body, and come into presence before your day.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you mentioned driving, because we just had a hypnotist on, and Anthony was saying like one of the times like you're really in your head, like where you can change things, is like a moment when you're driving, because you're zoned out. You're just driving through where you have to go. Like it's a lot easier to get lost in thought, and those times when you're lost in thought, like that's the best time to be in hypnosis, like if you're trying to retrain your mind.
Yeah. Because your subconscious is driving.
Yeah.
And you've been driving long enough right now that your subconscious is pretty good at driving. It's probably better than your conscious mind, right? So you're just like autopilot, real smooth with it. not gassing too much, coasting through everything. So in those moments, you can sort of, maybe take 5 minutes to just shut off the music and just see how much you can notice. I always love that prompt. I forget who said it. I think this guy's name is Bergs. But a challenge is to say, how much can I notice right now? And it immediately pulls you into your experience,
It's funny because I think that like culturally it's considered to be I don't know what the right word is, but it's like if you're driving without music, it means you're like going through something, or that like you're depressed, or that, you know what I mean? Like you had a rough night at work, so you're driving home with the music off. And only like recently have I come to like embrace the fact that like, yeah, I don't have to have like Fred again blasting through my through my speakers all the time. Like I can just like take a moment to like listen to the sounds, or like just hear like whatever it might be. But it doesn't have to be this thing where it's just like, oh, I had such a rough day, so now like I need to sit in silence. It can be like embracing the present moment, that like I'm here right now and this is nice.
Yeah.
I'm big on that. I don't even, I for a long time when I always ran with music. And now I find it so peaceful and relaxing to just hear the cadence of my feet and like the sounds around me, especially early in the morning, like the birds waking up. Like I notice things when I'm running through town in Beacon that I would never notice like during the day, like when there's too many people around and there's like noise and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But also I think a part of it too is like the fact that like embracing that like you don't have to take on this energy if you're like at the grocery store and it's super crowded, or if you're sitting in traffic and like you can feel everybody around you being frustrated by it. Like you don't have to take that on. You can notice it and be like, just because I'm not getting to where I need to be as fast as I should be doesn't mean that this isn't where I'm supposed to be.
Dude, you crushed it. Like that is, I feel like that's what getting older is about. You just learn all the things that you don't have to do that you thought you had to do. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I don't have to take on that energy. I can choose for myself what the experience that I want is. And I think also part of getting older as a man is bird watching. You're talking about listening to the birds.
We need a bird watcher on the pod.
When I first got
100%.
sober, there was like in my neighborhood, there was always hawks flying above me. And then I just like had to go, I was like, what does this mean? And it was like, you're on the right path. And I was like, okay, perfect. And I saw those hawks every day from that point on. I was just like, this is my motivation in the morning when I'm walking.
Yeah, I just like wake up in the morning. I'd have a text from Steve at like 6:30 a.m. and it was just like, saw another hawk today.
Yeah, I spend so much money on bird food and wind chimes because the exterior of my house is like just a bird sanctuary.
It's like Tony Soprano over here. You got ducks in the pool. Or?
I love that. But yeah, I love your awareness of just saying like, hey, I can, handle this how I want to, and I can feel everybody else's pull towards rushing and but not doing that.
And I mean, I feel like you can even take it as far as that, like when you're out in the world and somebody comes at you with energy that you don't like, or that is negative, or that they're projecting, or whatever it might be, especially as men, our first thing, our instinct is to just match that and overpower and whatever.
Or balance.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't have to be the way that you react. And that like nothing says that just because, obviously, like if you're in danger or something like that, it's a different story. But if somebody comes at you with some type of negative energy when you're out in the world, you don't have to respond with, I'm going to do what you're doing right now.
Right.
Like I don't have to take that on. And oftentimes I find that when you respond the opposite way, or respond what feels comfortable to you, that often kind of neutralizes the situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, it takes a momentary awareness on your part to catch yourself, right? And that practice gets easier and easier the more times you do it. It's, it's pennies in the bank. Every time you like focus on your awareness and you bring yourself back, you get better and better at it. And then all of a sudden, years go by and now you're able to catch yourself real quick when somebody comes at you, and the second thing is entrainment. You know about entrainment? So like if you put like a large grandfather clock in a room, all of a sudden and they have other grandfather clocks in the room, they'll all line up because like the energy of the biggest thing, everything syncs up to it. So somebody comes in the room with like a big energy of like anger, all of a sudden like the lesser aware people will all of a sudden maybe get on the same, wavelength or sadness or whatever. But you holding your own awareness, you are then entraining them to come into your energy, which is calm, calm or whatever you choose to embody. I like to remind myself calm leadership. If I'm ever standing in front of people or holding on to a room or something like that, I'm, try to open up a space for no matter what's happening, somebody's freaking out or somebody's unimpressed or whatever, a lot of energies come into the room that are varied, but try to hold my own as it is. And then it becomes something that other people entrain to.
Has that always been the case for you, or is it a journey that you had to go on yourself to try to train yourself and get better and better at it?
Something you cultivate over time. I think I keep saying the word awareness, and I'll say it probably 1,000 more times, but it's like a superpower because it just brings about the real you and situations where you're challenged and there's a certain level of trying to find the way to say it, but unabashedness, or like you're more confident when you're coming from those places. So all of a sudden now you're cultivating confidence too. I wasn't a confident person my whole life, but sitting in a place that I know is like totally me, and you're no one to impress, and you don't care if anybody likes it either. What you're saying, it's like, so it's just okay to bring forth whatever you're bringing forth. Now all of a sudden it becomes easy to help people and train into your energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I like that. So that's like entrainment. Is that that's like a scientific thing that like the sound will adapt to?
It's not sound, it's more just like energy. So if the grandfather clock or the metronomes are the big example they always talk about with entrainment. So I just think of it in terms of, there's this book called The Celestine Prophecy. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I have read that book.
We both read that
Great
book.
Yeah.
So it's fiction, but is it?
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't think so.
I read that book, and I was reading that book in Elixir, and I swear I sat and I just stared at the plants, and I was like, I can feel an energy coming off of that thing.
Yeah.
I love in that book how they talk about the methods that people use to gather energy from each other, or I forget them. One is intimidation. One is what is the self-hatred one? I forget what it was like.
I read it a couple of years ago. Yeah.
It was, I know it was like a self-loathing thing.
Self-loathing,
like you just you get in your
poor
feeling.
Me.
Yeah,
And I get energy from you with that poor me. Or intimidation. Now I get energy.
Yeah.
But I feel like that falls into the entrainment falls into that category of like seeing where energy goes, or seeing how people like, a boss might step into a room of 10 people and just slam his hand down on the table and be like, this is what we're going to do. Right. That's a method to, get everybody's energy focused and, do a certain thing. Right. It's all sort of an energy manipulation. So being aware of yourself, tapped into where you're at, is how you, manage things, is how you manage not give yourself away, to somebody else's BS or manipulation.
Great book takes. Yeah. Great book takes. I also love Alan Watts as well. A lot of growing up is just unlearning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like you go through those teenage years and kind of like your 20s and stuff like that, and you're trying to figure all these things out, and you're thinking that you're learning all these things about yourself, and then ultimately it's not that you need to learn more, it's that you need to like break down stuff from your childhood and from like society that has created who you are, that now becomes, well, maybe that's not me. Maybe I've just fed into the narrative that I'm super angry. Maybe I'm not that, or whatever it might be for yourself.
Yeah, I love that questioning process of, And I think as you get older, it's more, you learn more and more what you're not. It's a subtractive process. You know, when you're young, you're trying to add to yourself. I need this accolade, or I need this training, I need this car, I need this relationship. And you get to a certain point where you realize that all the additive processes are not actually what enhances your life, or not what gives you identity either. And you start going, oh, I'm actually not that. That's not me. That's not me. Sound healing is not me. Firefighting is not me. All this is not me. And these things start falling away, and you get down to like the deeper essence of like who you are and your timelessness and connection to everything else.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on like specifically identity? Because like you said, and I think it specifically through the lens of being men, it becomes like you need to be this thing. You need to define yourself in this way. And then you mentioned something that's like, I am a sound therapy practitioner, but like deep rooted at who I am, that's just like something I do. Like, what's your relationship to that kind of like identity with yourself? Because then something that I've struggled with personally was, it's like, well, then if I'm not those things, then what am I? Am I like this like ethereal being that, you know?
Can I ask you a question?
Of course you can.
This is a Maharishi, or yeah, I don't know, who is this? I forget at this moment, but I don't want. I want to take credit for it. But like, who were you before you built all this story? Like, but when you were 1.5 years old, before you created all this stuff for yourself, like, who were you?
Nobody.
Were you? You were still something.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
right. Like,
it's hard to like imagine what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, all these things that we are claiming as our identity are all intellectual things. So, yes, this Vinny is sound therapy practitioning. I'm firefighting as well, and I'm Vinnying in general. But like, I also realized that before I was doing that, I was still here. And, you know, take that back further and further and further. Like, this awareness has always been conscious and unchanging, and I'm still the same, you know, witness of life that I was when I was 2 years old as I am right now. It's unaging, it's unchanging, and I think I identify with that more. And all this other stuff is just play. It's like you can create all the, you know, everything you want, you can create, and you can create form however it comes up. And you could say my ambitions are taking me here and my creative process is taking me there, but it's all gonna fade. None of it lasts, you know?
Well, it's very interesting because now I'm thinking about like, well, what do I define as nobody? Because then what nobody is like, oh, you're not a videographer, you're not a podcaster, you're not a friend, you're not, you know what I mean?
Well, you don't need you don't need to hang on to anything.
Exactly.
That's your ego trying to hang on to something.
Exactly.
But I'm gonna get a little deep here for you, but I guess that's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
If you go back to that awareness where you are, you know, on the deepest level, just like watching and witnessing and perceiving everything that happens, all of a sudden, like, what you are and what everything else is sort of begins to blend together, right? There's like a consciousness within everything, and we're all just like part of the all, part of the universe, part of everything. And so the flower doesn't grow without the field that like supports it. Right? If the dirt isn't ready, the flower doesn't grow. So the flower and the field are both one thing, right? And like, you don't pop up without this earth that supports you. So you and the earth are one thing on some level, conceptual level, intellectual level. And you start seeing that really like all the borders between you and everything else are just imagined lines, right? And you could say, well, on a practical level, yes, sure. You know, I have to get in my car after this and go home and I'm separate from you.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm obviously not ignorant to that. But on another deeper, more real level, more timeless level, what's happening in this body or what this body is doing is all gone in a second. So it's just like, I think zooming out and like expanding your perspective beyond like, oh, how do I define myself in this moment and what I'm doing in this world? That all just becomes sort of like less or more inconsequential.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, Alan Watts has in the one book, he's just like, where does the cat start and where does the cat end?
Exactly.
And it's just like, we're all just squiggly lines.
Is it the tail? Is it the head? Is it the feet?
Yeah.
Squiggly lines. I don't remember that one.
That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, but you could say that about anything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think the mind wants to nail things down.
Yeah, because it makes sense and it's survival.
Right, and it's stable and it provides safety. But the second you do will be the second like the beauty stops happening, because the beauty and the flow of your life is where it keeps changing and where you just keep allowing, and like this friend comes and this friend goes and you just let it come in like a wave, but you also let the wave go out. You never try to hang on to anything. You never try to grip anything. And then all of a sudden you'll realize that like the more you can do that, the more in harmony you are with everything. It sounds idealistic, but the more you start to do it and realize that you can take your experience wherever you want to go, the more you'll be like, yeah, this is it. This is the way.
Yeah, the more you talk about it, the more I think about like, was it Wayne Dyer who's always talking about being attached to things and just kind of like letting go of like, you're attached to your identity. You're attached to the people in your life. You're attached to whatever ideals and morals you've cultivated in your life. But that it doesn't have to be something that is like, but you're still something when you take all those things away.
It's easier to see in other people first. You can, sorry, Mom, but you can watch your mother as she doesn't have to raise you anymore, cling to the mother identity. And, you know, my mother called me once to say, hey, there's a big rainstorm coming in. Make sure you do your laundry. And I thought to myself, man, like she's trying to hang on to the identity of my mother and still feeling like wanting to be needed in that way and struggling to see where her life takes me after this role for her has diminished. So like you can watch that in your friends and you can watch that in your family and everybody around me, like, oh, this person was attached to their beauty, and now that their beauty is fading, they're struggling to find their identity. Or how am I doing that for myself? It's hardest to see in yourself, but once you do that, you can. I forget where we started with this, but
just like attaching to your
you can
identity.
You can just start to see where your attachments are, and then releasing them.
Well, it's funny because you see also like the reverse of that. You see people who cling to relying upon their parents or whoever it is that is helping them along. And the parents are wanting to be like, you need to go out. And you know what I mean? They don't want to cling to that role anymore, but they see you at 25 years old clinging to the fact of you can't do your own laundry or whatever it is. And it's interesting as we go, because like those are all, you know, you could kind of like interpret that into all different sorts of ways, like your job or whatever it might be, where like your boss wants you to move up in what you're doing, but you're comfortable right here. Mm-hmm. Right? There's all sorts of ways. But I think the most important thing of what you said there was the fact that it's so hard to see that within yourself. But then so quickly do we go like, oh yeah, they're clinging to the fact that like the celebrity is clinging to the fact that they're not as hot as they used to be.
Right. Or, you know, it could be a job too. Like,
athletes is a good example,
yeah,
I think, right?
They have a hard time retiring because like, I am a baseball player, you know, like what am I going to be after I stop this, or, you know? So yeah, I feel like the quicker you can start to just release all that stuff and realize, going back to the Sadhguru quote of your life is your responsibility 100%, then you start looking back all the time. You don't blame everything on everything else or place too much weight in one thing. You're just like, all right, you know, coming back to saying, what am I attached to? It's my responsibility to take care of it, you know?
Yeah. Gotta let it go. Oh, this has been a very good conversation.
Yeah.
This is exactly what we were hoping for. Yeah. Get intellectual, get a little bit deep, talk about things.
Yeah, it's interesting sometimes when I talk with people, because I'm like, I don't really like to say what I do is sound therapy. I mean, it is what I do, but like, I like to just say I create meditative spaces. Like, I want to, it's bigger than just sound, because all this stuff, you know, it creates a certain energy, and we can all come back to our hearts and, you know, our greater awareness of who we are. And I feel like that's the bigger medicine that I want to be working with, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of your own way of not putting yourself in a box.
Yeah.
Because, you know, obviously I'm sure that in the field that you're in specifically, where I would say the large portion of people don't immediately understand what you do, they want to jump to identifying you as this, or that, or defining what sound therapy is as blank. And what you're trying to do is kind of expand that more and say, yeah, that could be part of it, but it could also be a lot of other things that have nothing to do with what you're thinking. And if you're not open to those things, you're just going to be focused on, oh, well, I'm going to have a hallucinogenic experience while I listen to a sound bath.
Yeah, everybody has their ideas of this, you know, what happens at the sound bath, and it's always funny to dispel them or watch them disappear. But yeah, the sound is the vehicle, right? And there could be multiple vehicles, you know. I envision myself, you know, maybe serving medicine to people someday, like whether it's, you know, psilocybin or something like that, or other modalities. But what I like to think is that, like, someone could come to me, or I can see someone and intuit what they need. And often right now, the tool in my pocket is a bowl or a gong. You know? So
Yeah.
I like that.
Since you brought it up, what are your thoughts on like psychedelics or using specific plants as medicine to kind of enhance why we're here, or
Break through
discovering things
trauma.
about yourself? Yeah.
I think they're very powerful. I think they can be abused, and plants are meant to help us, but not be like totally leaned on, you know? Let's say you take some mushrooms and you have an experience of being connected to all that there is with your partner, right? And you could come down from that and say, well, that didn't actually happen. We're on a chemical. Sure, but also you did experience it. You had that experience for yourself, and now you can pull down that experience whenever you want. It's in your body, and the neurons in your brain went through it, and you expanded what you thought was possible for your experience through that plant. So, I think that's really important. I think people can, they get, their brain gets caught in a set road, and these things can help you break out and go, oh, wow, I didn't realize that this was possible for my mind, but now I'm going to go here more often. I'm going to go here while I'm sober. You know what I mean? So I like to, you know, cultivate an attitude of soberness. Like, I don't drink, but I also, if you need help, I think it's okay to dip into these spaces and dip into, you know, plant medicine or certain synthetic medicines like MDMA or LSD even. There's like sort of a negative connotation around all that stuff, but I believe with the right setting and the right intention and not using it as a party drug, these things can be healing.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is the intention behind it. Because as long as you go in with the intention that like I'm communing with this mushroom for a purpose to like help me with something, and not going into it like when we were younger, we would just do mushrooms like willy nilly, like let's go hike up Storm King and like see shit. And now it's like now you do mushrooms and it's just like I've been having this thought that like that's been lingering and I'm wondering where it's coming from and I'd like to get to the bottom of it and let's see if this can help. And I feel like that's the biggest thing is making sure you're intentional with things, because far too often people aren't. And it's just like you see the people that think that they're like, I've become spiritually enlightened because I do mushrooms 6 times a week. I've been on 15 ayahuasca ceremonies. But I think it's the intention that goes into it. I'm sure there's people that do that stuff all the time, but if you're doing it intentionally, like you're getting somewhere with it.
Yeah, intention. Michael Pollan wrote a book called How to Change Your Mind, and he says that the setting and your intention is like the most important part of how to guide the experience. And I really took that to heart when I read it, and I've like seen the evidence of it many times. But one thing I learned, I went to this place called Cumancaya in Mexico, and it's ayahuasca medicine space. But I sort of observed the Remy is his name. He's the shaman there, but he did all these diets. So he would not consume any plants except for one plant for certain periods of time. It's a very minimal diet. But then they learn from that plant the wisdom, the medicinal value of that plant through experience. And that just like blew my mind. For some reason, just like that concept was transformational for me. So I went into my ayahuasca experience saying, even tobacco, show me, perfect calm. And I would let the plant show me things, or ayahuasca, show me how to create a more loving relationship with my son. And then the ayahuasca can show you. And it's just being open to like listening. And listening to like what medicine the plant has to, show you. And that's like a totally different way of approaching these experiences, I think.
Yeah. Especially like we come from a world where it was like, let's get as fucked up as possible tonight, or let's get jacked up, or let's do something psychedelic that could benefit us, but let's like see some crazy colors and watch Steve Aoki. And then we were talking about going to Electric Zoo in our past on the way up here, so that's why but then you realize that you could go into something like ayahuasca with the wrong intentions, or you could go into it with the right ones. And that also part of it is like the relationship that you have with those. And I've never done ayahuasca, but I've done mushrooms plenty of times. And it's something where your relationship with that can be like a mirror of your relationship with yourself, that you can look at it as, yeah, we used to do it like for fun or without the proper intention, or surrounded by people who you didn't know that well or who weren't great to be around for that experience. And then you can use it now in a beneficial or a healing way and say that like that's kind of like also the journey that I've been on as a human being on Earth.
Yeah, I would love to, impart that wisdom upon the leaders of our government, in some way, and change.
The research is there.
Yeah, change the thinking around this kind of thing. Even like marijuana can be used in that way. Like right now, there's a focus on making higher and higher THC marijuana, but it's all misdirected energy. Like it should be like a balance of the perfect balance of what is naturally grown by marijuana, and then you can go into an experience where you smoke and say, show me lightness today. I just really need something light, and I want to feel positive, and like let the plant, marijuana is a master plant, let it work through you.
Yeah.
instead of just being like on some Cheech and Chong, take as much in as you possibly
Yeah.
can and, go from there.
We definitely embodied that for a while.
Yeah, me too.
I can't even like comprehend how much weed I used to smoke in one sitting.
It's almost like you have to make that mistake before you can
Yes.
get to,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. You think Willie Nelson's like that when he's just getting high? He's just like, bring me a good song and a good beat.
Yeah. Baby.
Yeah.
I laugh sometimes because I'll see Snoop Dogg come on and be like, yeah, I'm not smoking anymore. Because I'll be like, I bet you he's having some of these realizations that like his method of excess is really not the way, And I sort of believe that these people all come to the same, we share an awareness collectively that's like, all right, well, maybe there's a different way of doing this. Maybe it's just like a little bit or something like that, I don't really partake in that much anymore. I was just like an option of how you can take in anything, even cacao or, tea, kava tea or something like that. You can just say, all right, let me open myself up to what this plant has to offer for my body and just listen to it. And then that's just a whole different experience.
Yeah. So you're a father. I also just became one. So I'd like to just touch on that for a little bit real quick, because I think the way that I was raised, the things and that we're talking about right now, having open conversations like this and being vulnerable and talking about spirituality, that wasn't something that I was raised on, but it is very much the way I intend to raise my daughter, and to just kind of be out of the way and let her experience things, and be there to guide her. And how have you taken that approach as a father, like with your son? How have you integrated the way that you go about life into a positive example for him? Because I think that's what we're here for, is to be examples that they can grow from and see.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great intention to start with. My son, Jonah, he really doesn't, I feel like he doesn't resonate with, the sound portion of what I'm doing with my life, but I do think he appreciates that I'm just doing what is natural to me and doing it fully. Right. And I try never to like force him to even play anything he doesn't want to play. And I think in that way he'll come around to it maybe, and he'll like understand the value. Maybe I always say, I make a joke that my dad gets smarter and smarter every day. And it's not because he's changing. It's just because I'm realizing that everything he's told me is true. Mm. And then I start realizing it over time. And I like to imagine that experience for Jonah and say that, like, eventually he's going to say, my dad did his thing and he didn't force it on me, and now I'm starting to learn the value of it. So that's my approach, is just, I haven't always been the best dad. I haven't always been this guy. And there was times when I've, treated fatherhood like it wasn't, like it was in the way. Mm-hmm. Middle of the night, waking up, and you got to wake up in the morning, and it's annoying and hard to tap into that compassionate place in your heart for your kid. But I think what I'm doing now is trying to find how to move with love with him all the time, and just show him that I'm being the most true version of myself. And that's like the model that I wanted to impart. Whatever you choose to do, it could be, Wall Street mogul or electrician or a firefighter, whatever he chooses, just like do it well and make sure it resonates with you.
Well, then I think that way too, that whatever it is that he's pursuing is genuinely what he wants to do.
Right.
Versus if you're shoving
Hopefully.
sound baths, or you're shoving, I think the best example of it is like when parents force sports down a kid's throat. Like, I played football, so you're going to play football, or whatever it is. And then the kid is 15 and he's like, yeah, I don't fucking like this sport. Like, I don't want to do this. And then it's, well, why don't you, and it's one of those things where, at least with something like that, then you would know that if he comes around to sound baths or follows an interest elsewhere or whatever it might be, like, that you didn't force him to do that, that like he made some type of conscious decision, and maybe 5 years from now he'll change his mind. But
Yeah, you taught him to be authentic.
yeah,
Right. I think me shoving, a talk like this, down his throat would be the quickest way for me to ruin it for him. He'll never listen to anyone who talks about awareness or yoga or meditation if I sit there and make him talk about it. So you see these parents that they raise their kid and they like try to force them into like a certain way of thinking, and it just, I think kids, they naturally evolve to like separate from their parents for a while, and everything their parents think is stupid until they're a certain age where you're like, oh, okay, like I'm cool with being cool with my dad again or my mother again. But I just like very hands off with that. I'm like, yeah, whatever you like. You like baseball? Let's work with that. You like football? Let's work with that. But just like figure out what you like and don't be, sedentary. That's my only thing. I think as men, it's our job to get things done and chase our ambitions and be producers in the world.
be useful. Yeah.
Yeah, and chase our visions, right? Like I have many creative visions, and you have to put the time into, actually bringing them about, or they disappear or somebody else brings them about or whatever. But I think that's the male function of the world, So I want that for him too.
It's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. All right. You got anything?
No, I mean, is there anything that you want to ask us? This has been a great conversation, though. We appreciate your openness.
Yeah, I would love to hear what your experience is of like sound baths in general, and like maybe anything that you might have thought, or like how it's worked with you, or what value you got out of it, I guess.
I mean, I've only kind of become familiar with it over the last couple of years, and I've always been open to it. But I'll use the example because we, a couple of weeks ago, went to your sound bath at the college. And for me, like, I find that there's, in general, kind of like this energy about yoga classes. And like when you're in it and it's great and it's fine, and like usually it usually has nothing to do with the instructor or other people who are participating, but it has more to do with like the energy in the room, that it's just like, sometimes I feel it like people are in a rush to get out of there. And they got to, you know what I mean? Everybody's like, the class ends and you run out of there and you rush. And I'm always the one who's going kind of like slow and trying to like really take in what just happened. And what I loved about that sound bath thing was that, like, you do your shavasana at the end and you're relaxing. It's usually like 5 minutes maybe at the end of a class. And then you go about your day and everybody's rustling and the old ladies in the corner are talking. And what I loved about that was like, it really gave me the sense, the sound was an add to it, but I just loved the like extension of the time that allowed to like really settle into it, versus like sometimes I feel like I'm just getting settled and it's just like, okay, everybody have a great day. So that I in particular very much enjoyed.
That's good. I feel like that's the transmission that I want to be giving out. So I'm very happy to hear that, is just like slowness and grace,
Yeah, absolutely. Slowing down.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like meditation is like the first thing that I dabbled in that brought me to getting sober. When I knew I wanted to make a change, I started meditating, and I was like, this will be the introduction, like I'll be able to figure it out in here. And I think anything that kind of gets me to that state, I very much enjoy. So like for sound baths, I think that might be the quickest way for me to get into like a very meditative place. Like I've done a bunch of things, like from regular meditations to just like, even when you talk about like running and using that as a meditation, like cold plunges, because it's a meditation on its own, like blocking out everything that's going on, or even if you're in a sauna. I think it was the most effective and fastest method for me to just be like, oh, I'm witnessing the river of thoughts right now. I'm just sitting back and letting them go by, and the sound just kept me in that meditative state the entire time it was going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes like I mean, you don't always have an hour to sit down, you know what I mean? Like, so sometimes, like, if you try for like 15 minutes, you don't really get into it until like minute 13. I think with the sound bath and having the frequencies and the vibrations in the room, it just immediate presence, just like right away.
I always say like the first 15 minutes, people are so hard to impress. I'll like, no matter what I throw at people in the first 15 minutes, there's almost an air of nothing can impress people. Because like the momentum from the outside world and the momentum of your thoughts and energies is still present. And it takes a second to like wear you down into the point where you're just like, yeah, I can relax now, you know? So I totally get that, you know, that first settling that happens. Also, though, too, there's some sounds that maybe you don't necessarily like. You know, I'm always trying to challenge people with some, like, you know, something that doesn't sound like a lullaby, but maybe is a little bit more masculine or like darker. Just to say, hey, like, are you still able to stay with me? You're totally safe in this room. It's just a sound. There's no, you know, Alan Watts would say, there's no wrong sounds. So I think that's also a teacher too, and an interesting part of, you know, meditations.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like blown away by the setup. You know, like when we were going, I kind of just pictured that you'd have like a couple bowls there and, you know, and then you show up there and it's just like this whole setup. It looks like we're about to go to war, you know, like, in the best way possible. And but I was very impressed by it and being able to, I know that I probably didn't experience it in the most,
Pure way.
yeah, the most pure way that you described, which is like in a room that allows for kind of like that reverb and the sound to really resonate with you. But I was very impressed by like, how do you like put all this together and make it sound, you know, like a lullaby or like something very different?
Yeah, I was like, there's sound bath is such a broad term. It could mean somebody showing up with, you know, a set of white bowls from Amazon, or it could mean, you know, $30,000 worth of sacred metal just, you know, out on the lawn. So I think that's such a, it's like a hurdle that I have to do to try to communicate to people like ahead of time before seeing what I do. Just say, hey, like this is a little different than what you might be thinking. It's actually a little bit more involved, and I take this very seriously. But it's always apparent after the fact that like, wow, that was so nice. That was a sonic exploration. That wasn't even a sound. You know, I hear all the ways that people describe it, and so that's something that like there's an educational portion to what I do of trying to say like, oh no, what I'm trying to do is actually this. You know. So.
Well, one of the things that, and I don't know if you'll identify with this or not, but I find myself to be a bit of a perfectionist, and the energy that I got from that was, it was like, yeah, like I thought the sound bath was incredible. I was like blown away by it. Like I really couldn't have pictured it being better in that moment, right? And then you were like, no, but like this can get better. Like it's not the most perfect. And I was just like, he's just like me. It's like that was great for you, but it could have been it could have been a lot better, you know. And but I think that that's something that, you know, like we're always battling, right?
Are you an Aries?
No, I'm not.
Or are you fire sign?
No, I'm not.
Oh.
No, I'm not.
I always say it's the Aries energy. I mean, I always have to like try to be first place or something like that. And so I'm always bringing way more than I need to.
No, I'm a Virgo. Yeah.
Cool.
I am interested though, now that we're talking a little bit even more about the sound bath. It's just like, so of all of the instruments that you have, like which one is your favorite to play?
Definitely the gong. I mean, the gong is...
Do they have different meanings to you, the different instruments?
It's just like a different tool on the tool belt, you know what I mean? They all invoke different things for people or work in different ways, right? But like I said earlier about the gong, it's impossible to hang on to. Like our minds are like, oh, the rhythm of this song is dum, 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 dum. And we can hang on to that. Now that's stable for the rest of the song. I'm attached to it. I can lock in. I feel good. I can almost not pay attention to it and know it's there. But with the gong, there's no rhythm. There's no melody. there's just waves of intensity, and you can really tell a story with it. You can, when I'm playing, I'm often playing with my eyes closed and just kind of like listening to these like layers. There's this bass frequency, but then there's also these overtones that come in and various little layers of notes and pitches, and bringing them out, letting them stay, letting them fade. All that comes into this like cinematic experience of taking somebody on a journey. I think that's so special. Also, the pure visceral experience of the vibration is something that you don't really get too often, right? So a lot of these gongs are like 68 hertz or 66 hertz, which is very low. It's very bassy. So unless you're next to a jet airplane or you have like crazy subwoofer in your car, you're not really getting to experience that too much. But there's also something very special about it being made by metal. Like they call it high fidelity. So when the thing that's actually making the sound in the room is not a speaker, it's not getting recorded, which loses something, and then reproduced through a speaker, which loses another layer. It's like, boom, the thing is there in the room with you. There's something that is special about that, or more about that.
It just brings us back to presence, right?
Yeah.
It's like you could make the greatest song in the world, but it's not going to be exactly what it sounded like when you made the song. Like you can only capture so much of it.
Right. And I think part of what makes the experience of listening so cool is a person that's playing is imparting their energy on it. It's like a loudspeaker for their inner world. Like when I'm playing, like my desire to like do certain things is coming out of my hands and then being amplified by the thing. So you're getting like an experience of like Michael Jackson's consciousness when he's like doing his thing up there and has his eyes closed and is so into it, you're feeling that, right? Or when a jazz guitar player or somebody on the piano plays a certain way, you're being allowed to like dip into their space for a second, see what that timeless inner world that they're experiencing is. So all instruments are like that. But I think it's really cool with the gong because there's this like extra layer of like visceral vibration that you get to feel along with that.
We were just talking about concerts yesterday here at the studio, and one of the things that came up is like how you can kind of feel when the musicians or whatever the performer is, how you can kind of like feel if they want to be there or not.
Right.
And you can kind of like tell when they're there just to like collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
And then you can feel when they really want to like put on a show and their emotions are in the music or however that is portrayed.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain, but it's very much like a real thing where like you leave a show and you're like, it really seemed like they wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And, create an experience.
Yeah. When they drop into intention, like what you sing from a place of your pain, or you sing from a place of your excitement about your daughter being born or something like that, carries a totally different energy than just being performative and making notes, So whenever there's a sound meditation, I try to drop into some intention of like, all right, like I feel like this room needs expansion, or I feel like they need calm. So I'll play from a space of trying to remember that instead of being like, it's about me or, the instruments.
It's kind of just like, I feel like we've had instances on this podcast where it's like you could feel that people who showed up were here to promote whatever their thing was or whatever it might be, or to get something out of it for themselves. Just like I'm sure that if we showed up in a way that was like, we're trying to go viral, we're trying to get the most traumatic story out of you or whatever it is for the purpose of us getting more views, you could feel something like that,
For sure.
And I think that that's what makes a conversation like this so great, is that like there's literally no motivation here other than to just like learn stuff.
Right. It's not like you're trying to get to the next moment via this one. This is not a vehicle to get you somewhere else. It's just like, no, we're just here in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good enough,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a good place for us to wrap it up, right?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Before you go, we would love to have you, just anything you have coming up, any sound baths, anywhere that you're going to be performing, that people can come see you, where to follow you, where to find you.
So you can go on Instagram, Reverb_Yogi, REVERB_Yogi. This Wednesday, I'm at the Ellis, which is it's this old church in Newburgh.
Okay.
They like converted, so now it's gonna be a performing space. So,
awesome.
yeah, I'm excited to do that. And I have if you go on my page, there's like a bio site which has all my event links. But yeah, and I'm always available for private appointments and corporate gigs and stuff like that.
All right.
I think the corporate world could use a little bit more of what you got going on.
That's where I feel like I really want to go is like,
Yeah.
you know, tapping into the Twitter execs or something like that. I need to get in there.
We got to get you in at Google and OpenAI.
Show up with my gongs and be like, here, put away your computers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Vinny, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
man.
so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Who thought we'd be here?
Yeah.